And at 9 o'clock, it's Sue Lawley and a Basque, surrounded by deranged Carol Vordermans in References Americans and Most People Under 30 Won't Get. A half-an-hour look back at the random, beige, innocuous, flatulent and, who are we kidding, laughably awful celebrities that Britain produced in the 1980s. The whole show is hosted by Russ Abbott in an oversized comedy vest, and warning, there's 5 minutes of prolonged exposure to Des Lynam in a pirate costume. But first on Radio Flange Goblet, it's everyone's favourite excuse for nipping out to the shops and buying up every military-grade weapon they can buy for the oncoming apocalypse, in which owls and puffins will be fused together, doused in toxic waste, causing them to grow to heights upwards of 57 feet, and attack the mainland with vast egg whisks dripping with the blood of virgin bats and chartered surveyors from Ipswich. It's the show that the Boston Daily Chronicle routinely forgets to mention in its colour supplements detailing 50 things they'd like to do with an avocado, and the audio presentation that once caused the Duchess of High Wycombe, Lady Arse-Flaps to Pinge, to set fire to several kebab vans and run down the high street topless as the day she was inducted into the Women's Auxiliary Badger Punching Guild, screaming in a loud and high-pitched tone, "I've often been mistaken for Roland Rat." Yes, it's the after-movie diner, and this week it comes from the Teddy Hampton Lounge in Beatty-on-the-Pipe, a delightful Tudor mansion decked out in Gothic regalia, the flags of all nations and the underpants of peasants. The special tonight is veal on a bed of spotted beds, and the chef is a Simon Not in My Guts, a man of whom the Michelin Guide once said he'd be fine if he just could remove his hands from under my jumper. The band is the rock-steady up-tempo polka beats of the East Dulwich Nipple Clamp Orchestra, and their leader Herb Clitoris, who tonight is sporting a very fetching swastika tattoo and is hitting his first cello, Kenny Pink, with a brick. Your server will be Alan, the maitre d' is blind drunk under a basket of mouldy hams, and the goblin tickling your testicles with a tissue paper printed copy of Wuthering Heights and looking at you accusingly because you never apologised to your father when you were 10 for urinating on his now priceless copy of Bob Monkhouse Does the War, which the Wentworth Chronicle once described as a hilarious, if not racially insensitive account of German brothels in the 1940s, is a complete and total figment of your diseased mind, and you should probably have a lie down in a darkened room and be pelted with sick. Conventioneers and conventionettes, and welcome to this, a very special episode of the After Movie Diner. For this is the last of the coverage that we will be giving the Wizard World Philadelphia Comic Con 2013. You will have noticed earlier last week I posted not one but two sort of mini diner episodes that covered the rock and roll star that was Michael Rooker's Q&A and the iconic and wonderful William Shatner's Q&A. We also uploaded some fantastic Philadelphia Comic-Con related videos on our YouTube page. That's over at www.youtube.com/OMNO Productions, and that's OMNO Productions. And also we put up a photo album on our Facebook page, which is over at www.facebook.com/After Movie Diner, where we also posted links to all the stuff that I'm talking about. If you're not, handy with a pen and pencil, able to write this gibberish down at the speed in which I say it. Anyway, I'd like to welcome all the new listeners who might have come across this because they attended the Philadelphia Wizard World, whatever the damn thing they call it. It's a long old bloody title, isn't it? From now on, I'm going to call it the Philly Comic Con. Ceremony be damned. But no, I'd like to welcome all of you new listeners here to the diner. This isn't a usual episode, although it's going to have something of a usual episode structure, so I do urge you to listen to others. But if you've come here just for Wizard World coverage, I hope that you don't leave disappointed. We've got some absolutely fantastic things coming up. I'm going to be reading some from my Comic-Con diary. I'm going to be playing some audio clips which have been previously unreleased. And at the end of it, we've got a wonderful interview with Vlad Yudin, who was the creator and co-writer on a graphic novel, soon-to-be major motion picture, HEADSMASH, which I urge everyone to check out. I'll be giving links and everything about that later. But first, I sort of asked, because I like these shows to be inclusive, and I also think that while we are talking about the Philly Comic Con 2013, we could also be talking about all conventions, really. We could be... I'm trying to get across the aspect of what it's like to attend one of these things, either for the first time or maybe just for the first or second time, just as a relative newbie to conventions. Well, what's the experience like? The sounds, the smells, the highs, the lows, the laughter, the tears, all that kind of stuff. That's what I'm looking to put across in this episode, not just a kind of flimsy roundup, but a real experience and some sort of information passing to people who either may have never attended or may have only attended once or attended Philly just a week and a half ago and was like, oh, wow, I can't process it all, or that was amazing and I don't know how to put it into words. Well, hopefully that's what this show is going to do for everyone listening. And to that end, as I said, like it to be inclusive, I reached out on the interwebs and asked various people if they had any, reports or experiences from either Philly Comic-Con or indeed any convention. And we did get some responses. So that is coming up now.
Tell us your stories from the Comic-Con. Tell us what went right and what went wrong. Was it too short or was it too long? We want your stories from the Comic-Con. Oh, did you meet the love of your life? And did she dig your costume? Or will you one day make that freak your wife? And did Queen shoot first in your hotel room? Come on, you can tell me. Tell us your stories from the Comic-Con. Tell us what went right and what went wrong. Were you too short? Did she go on too long? Your stories from the Comic-Con.
And first up, it's Tom Stratton and his experience in Philadelphia.
Okay, so, my experience at Wizard World Comic-Con Philadelphia. First of all, I was dressed as Slender Man for the majority of the weekend. I was working at booth 195, Kyle L. Comics. They sold giant canvas reconstructions of comic covers. For the most part, the weekend was really awesome, except for Saturday. I went into the bathroom to change into my Slender Man costume. I put my wallet down on top of the toilet paper dispenser. I forgot it there. Left the bathroom, went back to the booth, went in about half a minute later, because I remembered that I left it there, and it was already gone. Now, it completely sucks, because it had $50 and my IDs and stuff in it. However, the only other person that I remember being in there with me at the time was the Joker. So, I very well may have gotten my wallet stolen by the Joker at Comic-Con, which is okay with me, I guess. It's just I'm gonna have to dress up like Batman next year and get my wallet back. So yeah, it was a good con though. I loved it, and that's basically my experience. Well, the worst one. Thanks. And if you have any more information, tell me, please.
Well, thank you so much, Tom, for sending that in. And if anyone does have any information, please do contact us here at the diner. We'll leave you anonymous if you were the one who took it, or if you just don't want to be named or whatever. But if you do have any information, pass it along to aftermoviediner@gmail.com or on the Facebook page. Let's get Tommy's wallet back. Christ, who... I was just thinking as I was walking around the Comic-Con, actually, how wonderful it was that there's all these people together and, people who like different things and dressed as different things and so on and so forth. And, fights don't break out and arguments don't break out. And sometimes, we were standing online for 2 or 3 hours and there wasn't really a lot of stuff going on. These cons they're not peaceful in terms of like noise level, but peaceful certainly in terms of any kind of criminal activity. It's just sad to hear that there was a theft. I know firsthand what that's like, because just the other day some pond-dwelling, bottom-feeding, hunchback, cross-eyed, quizzling scumbag stole my umbrella. And the last thing you do is steal a gentleman's umbrella. I mean, that's simply not done. That's on the list of 10 things you just do not do. It's a scumbag move, as is stealing a man's wallet in the bathroom, especially while the gentleman was still in there. So look, if anyone does have Tom's wallet, then please do let us know here at the diner, or let Tom know directly. Find him on Facebook or find him on the Wizard World page or something like that. But on a better note, I'd like to say thanks ever so much for sending in the voicemail. It was great, Tom. Thank you. And also thanks for all the people who have joined the Facebook page after I've been putting up my Philly posts this week. I hope you're listening to this and I hope you enjoy the show. most sincerely, and it is great the number of likes we've got and followers and things just from posting stuff to do with the convention. I hope you stick around. I hope you listen to other episodes. We do cover all manner of films. In fact, we've got a comic book special coming up on a particular superhero. One might be able to guess which one, considering the big release this coming weekend. But we do have a big show coming up. We do comic book episodes once in a while. Normally to coincide with big releases. We've done an Avengers one and a Batman one and, a Ghost Rider one even. So have a look back. We also do, fan favorite films and all sorts of stuff. So, yeah, please do take a look at our previous episodes. But thanks ever so much for joining and following. And I hope more do when we put this up. So, hello, if you're listening. Thanks ever so much. Please do write in aftermoviediner@gmail.com. And now it's over to CT from the Nerd Lunch podcast.
Hey, John, it's CT from nerdlunch.net and the Nerd Lunch podcast. I've been to a few comic book conventions, and one of them was a Wizard World in Chicago where Walter Koenig, who played Chekhov, and Bester from Babylon 5 was there, and his reason for being there was mainly because he was talking about how he was in Babylon 5, I think the last season or two, sometime around that point, and he was, of course, selling the stacks of photographs there for like $5 or $10 that he was signing, but he was signing other stuff too, so I don't know, maybe it was a kind of a jerk move, but I went to the convention, to the dealer room, and got one of those $2 prints of Walter Koenig as Chekhov right before he's getting ready to shoot himself in Star Trek II, and he doesn't obviously shoot himself, but he's like got that panicked look on his face, and I took that up to Walter Koenig to have him sign it, and he seemed none too impressed by that, but he took it and just sort of mumbled something as he was signing it, and I thought he was saying something to me like asking, well, "Who do you want this made out to?" And I said, "I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said." And he just sort of whipped it back to me and said, "I did not say anything." And that was my Walter Koenig story, but he seemed none too impressed by that, and I guess I should have bought one of the $5 prints, but. Sorry, Walter Koenig, if you're listening.
Well, thank you ever so much, CT. I'm sorry that you had a odd experience with Walter Koenig, or am I sorry? No, actually, I'm rather pleased you did. That sounds rather wonderful. I'd like a weird experience with Walter Koenig, although preferably not one involving small woodland creatures in a large vat of gasoline. Anyway, coming up next, we've got an email from a regular contributor to our Facebook page, liker of many of my posts, a commenter, and just sort of all-round swell guy, Mr. Mark Burns. And he writes this email, which I'm going to attempt to do justice to right now. He says, "Hello, John, and all the others that dwell in the murky corners at Radio Flange Goblet. You asked viewers to send in feedback regarding conventions, Comic-Cons, geek gatherings, etc. Well, as I live in England, Bolton, Lancashire to be precise, I can only tell you about the ones I've attended over here. My first con was titled Multicon 98 and was put together by Dave Darth Vader Prowse Promotions. This was a 2-day event at the Norbeck Castle Hotel in Blackpool and cost about £30 for a 2-day pass. Guests included Dave Prowse and several other Star Wars related actors such as Jeremy Bulloch, who played Boba Fett, Michael Sherd, who's Admiral Ozzel, or Mr. Bronson from the BBC Kids show Grange Hill, Kenny Baker, R2-D2, Peter Mayhew, Chewbacca, and also appearing was Lou Ferrigno. Of course, Lou shows up for anything. The Incredible Hulk, Doug Bradley, Pinhead from the Hellraiser films, Ingrid Pitt, Countess Dracula herself, and the lovely Caroline Munro. Now, this was back in the day when sci-fi conventions in the UK were a very new thing. These days, especially in the US, where they seem to be a weekly thing, they are a regular part of a nerd's lifestyle. This being the first time for me, I was quite excited about the chance of meeting famous people. Myself and 2 friends packed our bags, loaded up the car, and went to Blackpool for the weekend. Parking up in the hotel's car park, we were almost ran over by some idiot in a fast-moving estate-sized car. Getting ready to launch a volley of verbal abuse at said driver, it turned out to be none other than Warwick Davis, star of Willow and Wicket the Ewok from Return of the Jedi. He was very apologetic, but he needn't have been. I was almost run over by an Ewok. My nerdy life was complete. Guests at this con were asking for about between £5 and £10 for a signed glossy and were more than happy to sign your own items for free. Photographs with the guests were free too, none of this having to buy a photo opportunity ticket. Sad fact was that I'd left my camera at home by mistake. Other encounters during that weekend include being asked to dance at the disco by two very attractive women dressed as Xena Princess Warrior, eating breakfast with a Klingon named Fred, and having a pint and a chat with the charming Michael Schurd. I went home on the Monday morning very happy and with a very empty wallet. Since then, I've been to several cons in Manchester and Birmingham and met lots of celebrity guests, including George A. Romero, Tom Savini, who, contrary to popular belief, was not a grumpy bastard, Ken Foray, Galen Ross, and David Early from Dawn of the Dead. I think it means David Emge. Tony Todd, David Norton from American Werewolf in London, Andy Serkis, who's Gollum, John Rhys-Davies, Sala from Indiana Jones and Gimli the Dwarf, Ray Park, Gunnar Hansen, John Landis, and Robert England. Robert England was great. I asked what he would be doing after the convention, and he said staying with friends in Wales. We had a chat about his favourite old British films, and he asked me what some of mine were. Amongst them, I mentioned the film Whistle Down the Wind, starring Hayley Mills, Alan Bates, and Vernon Lee. Oh, one of my friends once fucked Hayley Mills, came from Robert. You could have knocked me over with a feather. I was speechless. How do I continue the conversation after that remark? I managed to convince Robert to pose for a photo. A sign behind him stated no posed photos, and he remains one of my favourite convention experiences. Cons now are a once-a-year thing for me because travelling to Birmingham NEC costs me around £50 in fuel, £10 to park the car, and £10 to get into the convention. That's before buying nerdy stuff and paying for autographs. The last time I went, I spent around £300 in total. An expensive but very enjoyable pastime. I literally drool with envy seeing the guests that appear at cons in the US. I keep telling myself that one day I'm going to go to a con in the US. Who knows, huh? Thanks as always for the show. I never miss it regardless of the subject. Please feel free to edit this rather rambling email. Well, not at all. That was a fantastic email, Mark. Thanks so much for sending it in. I hope you will write again to the diner as I love reading them out. That also sounds like some fantastic experiences you've had at a variety of conventions. So thanks ever so much for sharing them with us. And it's funny you mention Warwick Davis because my buddy Dr.Action, Paul Crowson, for people who don't listen to our other show, Dr.Action and the Kick-Ass Kid Commentaries, and you really, really should. But for those who don't, Mr. Paul Crowson, he had a similar weird experience with Warwick Davis at a different convention. He writes, I was at a con in Birmingham, England, popped outside for a cig. Warwick Davis walked past and said hello, and he was holding a Tupperware container containing his sandwiches. How about that? Exclusive. And that was from Doc Paul Crowson. We then got this from Lewis Kugel, or how did he tell me to pronounce it now? Lewis Kogel? Lewis Kogel, is that how he pronounces it? It's incorrect, but that's how I think he pronounces it. Lewis Kogel from Traumatic Cinematic, which is another podcast, which is fantastic. Go listen to the Traumatic Cinematic show. He sent us this.
Greetings and salutations, Mr. John Cross. This is Mugumbo, also known as Lewis R. Kogel from the Traumatic Cinematic Show. I am happy to come here to discuss with you a little bit something about conventions. Unfortunately, because of the bastardly ways that Facebook works, I wasn't aware that you were going to the Philadelphia's Wizard World until you were basically there at the Comic-Con. If I had known so beforehand, I would have surely been at your apartment emptying out, robbing it, and such and thereforth. I've got to say that conventions, I caught the bug for conventions at Gen Con 2011, I do believe. It was, if you've never been to a Gen Con, like last year we had 80,000 people come to Indianapolis, Indiana for Gen Con, and it was amazing. It's one of those things that you just can't understand until you experience it. Not only was there a main hall with all the vendors and all the goods and games and amazingness and stuff like that to check out, there was all these other huge rooms full of games and events and stuff that you could get involved in. On top of that, then you started walking, you go upstairs and you start going to the hallways, because in Indianapolis, the convention center is connected to like 5 different hotels. And then all the hallways up connecting to all these hotels is all these other games and miniature painting workshops and seminars and lectures and movie viewings, and it was amazing. It's just amazing. But that's Gen Con. But I've been to a Wizard World Comic Con, and I do have some stories about the Wizard World Comic Con. I was lucky enough. I went to the Chicago Comic-Con 2011. I actually bought tickets for 2012's Comic-Con, but my friend Deuce, bastard, he never showed up on the Saturday morning. We were going to drive to Chi-Town to go, and I wait because I couldn't take off without him and go alone. I waited until it was too fucking late. Anyways, so the Wizard World I went to, I was really surprised that it seemed like it was more of a autograph photo opportunity if you got $20 to $40 type event than it was about comic books. Seemed like there was like artists and writers and famous comic book people there. I'm not part of that genre, but I read their banners and stuff and was like, wow, this is the dude that's doing Spider-Man right now. Fucking rad. And he's kind of in a shithole little corner here. And that kind of seemed disappointing and a little depressing, but other than that, it just, I love it. I love these conventions. We've got one coming up here soon called Days of the Dead. You can check it out, daysofthedead.net. It's we're covering movies that are going to be featured there. They're great movies anyway. They Live and Cabin Fever. When I say great movies, I'm using that very generously. And Godzilla versus the Smog Monster and Phantasm and some other titles. It should be interesting. The horror conventions are quite cool because the talent is right there. Unlike the Comic-Con that you've been to, Mr. Cross, the talent is right there. You literally stay after hours closed, and you can party with the talent, with Bill Moseley and Linda Blair, or whoever happens to be there. I'm not saying those people will necessarily party with us, but it is possible. So yeah, I don't know what to say. I'm really happy to see you getting into the convention scene. It's quite addictive, and you got to be careful because you do want to basically do everything that's there, and you can't afford it all unless you get a sponsor. But yeah, all right, guys. Well, it was awesome being on here, and hopefully you can use something that I said. Maybe not. I don't know. Hopefully not. Maybe. I'm watching you right now. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Yes, I am.
Traumatic cinematic, bitches.
Check us out. TraumaticCinematic.com.
I'm on the internet.
Well, thank you for that, Lewis. That padded the show out by at least 5 minutes. I'm just joking. Or am I? No, seriously. Thank you ever so much, Lewis, for sending that in. Any kind of sort of feedback, interaction is welcome. And I would urge people to go over and listen to Traumatic Cinematic and the Nerd Lunch podcast, which CT was from earlier, because I've been on both of them. In fact, I was recently on the Nerd Lunch show talking all about the top 10 action movie list that was on IGN. And before that, I was on Traumatic Cinematic discussing Life of Brian. So I would hunt down those two shows on iTunes or one of those fantastic places, Stitcher or Spreaker or whenever those places are, and have a listen and enjoy and engage and realize that online there's all this wonderful free stuff you don't have to pay for. You can just download, listen to all this free entertainment, and it's not produced by one of the top 5 corporate media producers. It's independent, baby. Okay, so the last bit of feedback we got came in the form of this voicemail.
Hello, John. This is Yogi from Bratislava. I is president of After Movie Dino fan club in Bratislava. It is best show on Radio Flange Goblet. You come to Bratislava, I let you make sex doggy style with my wife, Gertrude. A fucky bang bang. Thank you, John. I is big fan. Big fan.
Well, it is nice to know that someone out there is listening. And now, without further ado, thanks for all that feedback and all that good stuff. Let's move on now to my Philadelphia Comic-Con diary.
You may be sitting at home, thinking, come on, John, tell me what you get up to at the con. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you. You may be sitting at home, you may think that you have fun. Well, come on, John, what you get up to at the con? Well, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you.
For anyone who has heard the podcast's coverage of last year's Wizard World Philadelphia Comic-Con, you'll know that it was an anxiety-riddled but also thrilling ride. From nervous podcaster journalist with out-of-depth feelings and pressure to get something, anything, that resembled audio reporting from the event, to a steady acceptance of the event's parameters and, dare I say it, even unabashed childish enjoyment. This year, as you'll see, never want to repeat myself, I instead opted, as I was saying earlier, to just enjoy myself as a convention goer and then report that back instead. Last year it was a list of what not to do and what to do as a first-time podcaster at such an event. And this year it's what to expect if you're attending one of these con thingies. So please enjoy. Friday. I arrived by Megabus from New York at around 11:15 a.m. Friday the 31st of May. If you're ever doing this again for future conventions, people, be aware that Megabus also drops off in the city centre before 30th Street Station, something that I don't think is well advertised on the Megabus website. Anyway, I got to the hotel and was pleased to find I could check in early and a room was ready. I was also pleased to see that the Courtyard Marriott was a lovely hotel with very helpful staff and mere minutes away from the convention centre. After a long day walking around the large and various halls of that vast convention centre and or standing online for a while, the short walk back to the hotel was most certainly welcome. I was heading to the convention with the intention to see Linda Blair's Q&A, which was scheduled to be between 1 and 1:45 p.m. on the Friday. I arrived, I checked in, got my 4-day pass wristband and my exclusive copy of The Walking Dead issue 1. So far so cool, the line thankfully had been short and quick. I then headed over to the press booth and see what was going on press-wise from none other than Jerry Milani. Now, people who have heard last year's episode will remember talk of Jerry, and indeed this is the same Jerry of which I speak this year. The slightly disappointing news was that none of the guests were apparently doing interviews. Now, Jerry did stress that this wasn't for anyone. It wasn't just me. It was anyone. They're not doing interviews for anyone, is what he told me. And it was nice that he stressed that it was for everyone, because it made me think immediately like, oh, right, okay, because they do it for other people, but not for a lowly, shitty podcaster wearing a bad Hawaiian shirt like myself. Anyway, that might just be my own insecurities and negativity. No reflection on Jerry, who this year was fantastic, polite, friendly, and wonderful. So I can't actually say anything negative about it because I didn't really see the man very much because they weren't doing interviews. So he wasn't around. He just, as far as I was aware, sat at the press booth eating pasta out of a plastic tub, apparently. And that's fine. Wonderful. Congratulations, him. Anyway, I don't really get the press pass just to rub shoulders with famous folk, and it certainly wasn't the only reason I was going, but obviously it had been a feature of previous years and other conventions, and it certainly would have given an exciting something to provide listeners, readers, and watchers of the various sites that I run. A lot of cons are places where stars announce new stuff, provide tasty behind-the-scenes knowledge, and so on. Not so much with the Wizard World Philadelphia Con, and clearly this year I wasn't going to get my chance to pry either. Oh well, I thought, and trundled into the vast hall. Now, a couple of words here about the arrangement this year. Last year, registration was upstairs from a main door and escalator of the convention centre and fed directly into the main hall, which I think was smaller last year. Also, there were clearly marked and easily accessible and obvious exits all the way along. This year, the registration area felt about the same size, but was slightly awkward to get to in a long, long walk from anywhere. Once inside the main hall, the layout was better, with photos right at the back, and then the famous folk in front of that, and then some stalls, then Artist Alley, then some more stalls, shops, etc., finishing right at the front with one of the best new additions, a comfortable and fun seating area. This was probably put there because getting to the damn place was such an interminable walk from anywhere. Another great addition was the posting of the schedule in various places, and even a really handy information stand. Still no Wi-Fi though, which boggles my mind in 2013, but I can't complain. There were some serious improvements made this year once you actually got into the hall. Weirdly though, although everything felt and definitely was bigger, it had the odd effect of making it seem like there was less there and more padding. The second disappointment came when seeing a black line through Linda Blair's Q&A on the board by the seats. It was confirmed by the helpful lady at the information booth that Linda had missed her flight or something and would not be giving her Q&A today. Probably had something to do with her dogs, which you'll hear all about later. Initially, a little sulky in my head, I wandered around the whole hall, took everything in, took some pictures of some early costumed folk, and then thought, well, now what? None of the guests had showed up yet, and the next thing I had planned on going to was the Ray Park Q&A, and that wasn't until 4 p.m. This is where what I learnt last year kicked in. Lesson 1. Adopt, adapt, and improve. Or, make the most of it and enjoy yourself. You're here and you paid for this thing, didn't you? So come on, buck up. After another bit of a wander and a few more snaps taken, I decided I would have lunch and then attend at 2 p.m. Hollywood and Comics, which was described in the blurb in the book as comic creators have broken into the film and television business and have built successful careers as screenwriters and producers. Hear from these successful professionals about the books they've created that studios are purchasing in this eye-opening discussion. Well, it wasn't at all what was promised, although it was a good fun time. Basically, the founders of a fantasy comic publishing house called Zenescope and producer-director John Schnepp discussed how they founded their company and how they got into comic books, animation, and soon film. They also discussed what studios are now looking to invest in, as comic books are obviously a huge box office business. Although I was not so concerned with the content of their books, a sort of dark adult fantasy retelling of Grimm's fairy tales, Alice in Wonderland, and other publicly available titles of that ilk, the talk was a fantastic tale of courage, entrepreneurship, and creativity. John Schnepp, too, detailed how he fell into the business, some of the shows, videos, and books he had worked on, all with a wonderful, deadpan, sad sack, depreciating, and witty sense of humour. There was an awkward moment towards the end where an obviously crazy person attempted to debate at length the annoyance she had that so many of the actors who had played Superman had brown hair and the wrong colour eyes. John Schnepp thankfully didn't put up with the madness too long before claiming he didn't give a fuck and was looking forward to the new film. The crazy person then left. I'm not sure what became of her, but if you're online for Man of Steel and see someone waving placards declaring the wrong hair and eye colour of old Supes, then bingo, you found her. I would avoid her at all costs. Apart from that, the panel was funny and inspirational to say the least, and I was glad I had attended. Then in the same room at 3 p.m, Kevin Sorbo of Hercules and Andromeda fame was doing his Q&A. Perfect, I thought. While not a huge Hercules fan, apart from obviously the Bruce Campbell-centric episodes, I had seen enough and was interested enough to let his Q&A see me through to Ray Park at 4 p.m. Already the day was whizzing past and I was loving every minute of it. This was one of the Q&As that sadly I didn't capture any audio for because I would have loved to have had it here to play for you. He was charming, funny, frank, passionate and talkative. He mentioned the myriad of low-budget film roles he's done and has coming up. He talked about shooting Hercules and Andromeda at length. He talked about his fitness regime at the time versus now, and he talked about, with deep sincerity and positivity, the school charity he works with. He also addressed the infamous internet meme featuring him shouting, seemingly over the top, "Disappointed!" which he revealed he actually stole from Kevin Kline in A Fish Called Wanda, which, now you watch it again, makes perfect sense. It was a great, relaxed and fun Q&A. At 4 p.m. it was time, finally, for Ray Park, and despite him being a bit late due to lines at his stall, he gave a great chat about his inspiration to study martial arts, his famous roles as Snake Eyes in G.I. Joe and Darth Maul in The Phantom Menace, and his Scottish heritage. I'm now going to play for you the full recording that I have of his Q&A. And I think there's going to be some background noise and stuff because there was a guy next to me who barged past me and sat down and was chatting all the way through and whispering, and he didn't know who it was. He was looking at and whatever, and he was being a bit of a show-off, annoying teenage twat for a couple of, honestly, a little plain-looking women who he was with. But anyway, he was still being a big show-off twat, so I'm not sure if he shows up on the audio, but if he does, I'm really sorry. This is the best I could do. Here is the full recording of Ray Park's Q&A at Wizard World Philadelphia Comic-Con. Enjoy!
I grew up watching American Ninja, all the ninja movies, the samurai movies, and of course Jackie Chan and Jet Li and Bruce Lee, of course. And I just wanted to be a ninja. I wanted to have those special powers. And I know I'm telling a long story here, but it was when I played Darth Maul, even though my background is martial arts, I had to sort of tame it down just a little bit because it was Jedi and Sith, and I wanted to sort of let loose a bit more in the style that I do. So I got to do that for Snake Eyes, and also learn some new things as well. Like I never got to practice with size or contours. So for the first movie, the stunt guys, I had a really good guy teach me how to use a tonfas. So, and I always think of TJ Hooker as well. You remember that TV show? You know, because I remember as a kid, he was good at throwing on getting the bad guys down and stuff. So when I was learning how to use tonfas, I would teach my son, because you have to be very careful how you teach the kids with nunchucks, you know, pretend nunchucks and tonfas. So I would say, imagine there's a big bear over there, and the bear's coming at you, so you throw the nunchucks and you grab around the legs and you pull and you run away as fast as you can, you know? Because it was good to be Snake Eyes again.
Well, it's interesting that you talked about your skills in the movie, and you also went back to Phantom Menace and talked about that as Darth Maul, whatever. You, and I don't know if anybody here knows this in the audience, you have a signature move, from what I understand, that you try to do in every movie. Is that true? Am I hitting a mark on that one?
Are you talking about the sort of gymnastic move, the
yeah, the spin move.
I think the reason for that is growing up watching Hong Kong movies, guys would always do it. It was one of those special moves when I was a kid that not many people would practice in or you would see in competition, and you would only see wushu guys do it. And not many people practice wushu at the UK at the time, and I was just getting into it, and it was one of those, if you can do a butterfly twist, you were sort of regarded in a certain... It seemed impossible to do, watching on films, and I wanted to be able to do that impossible move. So I remember watching a Shaolin movie, and one guy was doing a butterfly, and the other guy was doing a butterfly twist, and I just thought it was so cool. And so I paused rewind, you know, the old video, to sort of learn this move, and I went to the park to teach myself. And I think it's because I never saw it in like Hollywood movies, you know, like action movies. So I wanted to... It was one of those moves where I just wanted to capture it on film. And I couldn't afford a video camera when I was a kid. There was nothing, my mum and dad didn't have one. So to do it in a film and have it, a character, and then it's just been choreographed into some of the things that I do now. And more of a personal ego thing. Like for Snake Eyes, wearing the gear, if I could do a butterfly twist in that, then, you know, it's like more dissatisfying. Because you get a little bit scared. You question yourself and think, can I do it with the mask on and the gear on and the sword?
I can understand that. Let's open this floor up for questions since we have a short time. How about some younglings?
How much time do we have?
We got until 4:45. So a little past that, I know we can probably stretch it to next. I have to be into another panel. So, young lady, why don't you go ahead? You have a question?
Hey, dude. You know, I always wanted to be part of a Batman movie or a James Bond movie. And I've said recently that I'd love to be part of the new Star Wars movies, and I don't mind if you dress me up as a creature and make funny sounds, you know? Totally like Spot Ray, where's Ray, you know? So I'd like to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure you're going to have a long career with Star Trek movies coming up. I'm sure they're going to be calling you a lot.
I'd like to be part, it'd be nice to be part of Star Trek too. So, I grew up with sci-fi buff, you know, not buff, but loving Star Wars, loving Star Trek, Batman, Spider-Man, 18, He-Man, you know, Thundercats.
Yeah, I think you're one of the popular characters out there. Every character you've done so far has been popular, so I'm sure that the eyes out there in Hollywood is going to have their eyes on you. Any young person out here? Go ahead, dude. You got one?
Hey, good to see you again.
You were Star Wars weekend. He said I met him at Disney World last weekend for Star Wars.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
It was a fun weekend, wasn't it?
They were on stage with you.
Yeah. I was going to do some silly dancing here, but it's not the stage for it.
Silly dancing. I'm sure we can make room for you. Alrighty, once again, if we can't hear you guys in the back of the room, there is a microphone. If you stand up right in front of it at some point, I'll go ahead and choose you, but if you can go ahead and kind of be vocal, I appreciate it. Sir, right now, go ahead.
Are you still involved with Iron Fist?
Are you still involved with Iron Fist?
I'd like to be. It's many years have passed now, and it'd be nice to see that movie sort of take off. And if I ever get, because I was 25 when they approached me to play Danny Rand, but it'd be one of those roles where I could really push my physical ability, not just like Snake Eyes, but you get to see me, and I get to play a character. And also it was a comic that my dad liked as well as a kid. So when I was approached to play Danny, I just thought, the heavens are in my favour. Yeah, this is it. So I've got too many tattoos on my body now, so I don't know if I'll be able to go shirtless.
Yeah, it's interesting. Out of all the actors I've worked with in the past, Ray has always been one of the most humble. He's ultra talented. My God, he could run, circles around me and anybody else in this room, but you never know it. He can probably push you as being better than him. This is a very, very humble guy. Yes, I'm kissing your butt. Next question. Let's go on this side of the room. Anyone over here? Yes? Young man, go ahead.
During your role as Darth Maul, were you wearing contact lenses the entire time? And if so, did it ever affect you with any of your acrobatics?
Let me repeat that real quick. In your role as Darth Maul, have you ever, did you wear contact lenses? And if so, did it affect your performance in martial arts as an actor?
Yeah, I wore contact lenses. There was two pairs that I had. I had the close-up pair which you pinhole, and where if I didn't need to do action and the camera was close up on my face, they were the ones I would wear. And basically, you're looking through the smallest hole ever, and all you can see is what's in front. You have no peripheral, and there's a glow of yellow. And then the stunt pair, the holes are a little bit wider. And I've never worn contact lenses before, but I never let it bother me. It wasn't one of those things where you go, I'm going to freak out now, I'm going to complain, I'm going to say, no, I don't want to do this. It was just, you did it, and you just made it, you made it work. And because we rehearsed so much on the fights, my dad always brought me up to practice in a way that you should be able to do it in your sleep with your eyes closed. And yes, I did try a butterfly twist with my eyes closed to see if I was able to, it was one of those, I was a goofy kid, believed everything. Oh, the sky is pink. Oh yeah, the sky is pink. I just loved watching movies, and so it was a challenge in that way, but I didn't let it get to me. Just adapt and you get on with it, and being a martial artist, you didn't complain, and it was just part of it. And the same goes with Snake Eyes, is if you think about everything that you're wearing and what you have to do, you're sort of defeating yourself right from, the first, what am I trying to say, like the first moment. And once I'm in the suit, it's like you have this glow, your senses are heightened, and you can't see much out the mask, but you can. Your training falls into place, and all the years of doing basics and martial arts, and it helps in my character. So you could put a bandana around my head and tell me to fight in the dark, and I'll be able to do it in a film. But in real life, I'll be the first person to run out the door.
Okay, what do we got back here? Right here in the corner, yes sir.
Ray, did you ever have a Scottish accent?
Aye, all the time. Where about you?
I'm from Freedom.
From Glasgow. Good to meet you.
It just came from travelling, and because you sound pretty English to me.
I'm a Jockney now. Yeah. What happened was I moved to London when I was 7, 8, and all the girls run after me and go, "You're so adorable," and then I got beaten up a lot. But, it wasn't just by 1 or 2 people, and that was another reason why my dad sent me into martial arts, because the Glasgow kissed it, he always what I could. And so then they got me speaking Scottish now.
You still live in Scotland, or you live here?
I live here.
You live here? How long have you been here in the country?
I came in 95.
Okay, because most of your accent is gone. I can actually understand you. There's no subtitles there at all. I'm impressed.
It's funny because my wife, I would take her up to my dad, and my dad would be this, my dad hasn't lost his accent, and if I would speak in a London accent to him, he'd be like, "What, mate, what are you doing? Why are you speaking like?" My dad would make fun of me, and I was like, "Oh, sorry, mate. Dad, you're right, for about 5 years, she's like, I didn't understand a word what your dad was saying. And I'm like, but you were smiling all the time. You know, but when you meet my dad, he'd smile all the time anyway. He's just bigger and larger than life. And it was just, I just was fighting so much, or defending myself from being bullied because I was from Scotland, that we changed to another school in a different area. For the whole of the summer holidays, I just practiced to do an English accent. And I remember as a kid going, I am from London, I am English. So the accent I picked up was from one of these like, what mate, how you doing? Yeah, I'm from North London. Yeah, thank you mate, thank you. Alright. You can imagine, I've said this before, when I was 21 playing Darth Maul, my line would have been like, Tatooine is sparsely populated. The trace was correct. I finally quit it my Mars day, you know what I mean? But I've been told in the later years, why didn't you keep your Scottish accent? And I'm like, I wish I did all these years, you know? So I can throw it back when I need to. Now I'm thinking in a Scottish head now.
All right, let's break him out of that. Anybody from South Philly here? Okay. Let's go right here against the column there. Yes, sir. Yeah, you just point at yourself. No, you right there.
First, I want to say thank you for all of your work.
Can you go to the mic for me? You're pretty low, I can tell.
First, I want to say I want to thank you for all your work. And when back to the question you were asking about playing Darth Maul, because of how restricted you were with the contact things, how was the choreography and the training for the scene different before you got to the cameras?
What happened, it got to the point where we were designing the fights and just practicing and coming up with different moves because, George wanted to show the Jedi's at the height of their training as masters, Jedi masters. So the style could be energetic. And so I remember there was a time when we just had like a block on what to do because we were trying to figure all these different moves. And we were really, these were lightsabers. If I had a lightsaber, what would you do with a lightsaber? And a lot of moves in martial arts, you spin a stick around and put it around your back or wrap around your head. And you wouldn't do that because you think, I've got a lightsaber, I'll cut my arm, or the glow would hit me there. And it got to the point where I would just ask the stunt guys to just come at me, like it'd be a moment where I closed my eyes. And they were so good too, controlling themselves, that it wasn't a real fight. It was just they would come at me with like technical moves and then I would just react. Because I had a block too, I didn't know what to do. Star Wars was the first movie where I got to do movie fighting, like choreographed fighting. In Wushu and Shaolin, we have set forms that we do, but it's Kung Fu stuff. So this was different, and it was an opportunity. And of course, my upbringing and watching Hong Kong movies had a play in that too. And so we rehearsed it for a few months, and then it got to the point where it was boring rehearsing. I just wanted to get in front of the camera as the character and be more. And with time, the ideas got better. But George already approved the fights because Liam and Ewan were practicing the fights in between takes and in between other scenes they were doing. And my stuff wasn't until near the end of the shoot. And it was a little, not frustrating, but it was interesting where your ideas go from having something that we did in film. We had other ideas too for fights, but we couldn't use it, And I always thought, well, maybe one day, in another Star Wars movie we can do it. But that was then, and now it's now. I'm old now.
Are you a fan of Clone Wars? Have you seen Clone Wars? And if so,
yes.
How do you feel about that character and the way they went along with how they...
I think it's great. Sam plays more and having the brother as well. I was at Star Wars Celebration 5, and they introduced his Savage, his character, so I knew it was going to happen more. And really, thanks to the fans and to you guys, that it would have been great to see more Darth Maul and to see what your ideas, come to light as well. And it shows that George listens to the fans and brought back, and Dave, bringing back more for the Clone Wars, and maybe he'll bring something like that back for the other Star Wars.
Yeah, the new series, if you guys don't know, the new animated series for Star Wars that is debuting next year. I think it's The Rebels?
Rebels.
Did I get that right? Star Wars, The Rebels, something like that? I mean, of course, there's got to be bad guys in it, but even though it sounds like it's focusing on the good guys, so there's another chance for you. Another question. Anyone? Sir, with the black hat, right there.
What would you say is your favorite fight scene that you were not in?
What would you say was your favorite fight scene
in any movie?
In any movie, TV series, whatever.
That's a good question. One of my favorite movies, actually it's a couple of fight scenes. Let's think. It used to be Tiger Cage 2 with Donnie Yen, and it was a good fight scene near the end. And then it was Jackie Chan and Benny the Jet. And I think it's Twinkle Twinkle My Lucky Stars or Meals on Wheels, where Benny Jet's awesome. I don't know if you know him. And he fights him, and so Jackie treats it like a training session. And he's going, yeah, he's it. And I just thought some of the moves that we're doing in that choreography were awesome. And I actually taught myself how to do that kick that Benny does, or Jackie, the illusion kick backswing. And I've always wanted to use that in a film. I've always wanted to do it exactly the same way they did it in that movie. And then there's like Flashpoint with Donnie Yen. So the Hong Kong movies are like something that's got impact. And of course Bruce Lee, you know, like watching, Bruce, even though it's different and to what Jackie does, but he's still the master. How about you? What's your favorite?
I always love the one with Bruce Lee and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Actually, yeah. That's a good one. Yeah, it's a shame that didn't finish in the way Bruce wanted it to.
Awesome. Cameraman.
Okay, so my question is this. We're talking about the old fighters like Bruce Lee and all this. If you could fight any of them in their prime on film, just as a stunt fight, who would you want to fight?
If he could fight anyone at the time in their prime, who would Ray like to fight?
Growing up would have been all of them. As a kid, I never envisioned me fighting any of the. I just wanted to be part of their team. Like Jackie Chan had his team. I just wanted to be part of the JC team. And then, of course, all the Western guys fight Jackie Chan. They're the bad guys. So I already knew if I'm going to be part of a Jackie Chan movie, I'm going to be a bad guy. It's not going to be a good guy role. And even till now, I want to work with Donnie Yen. He's awesome. I want to work with Jackie Chan. I want to work with Jet Li. But I want to work with great martial artists that I can learn from as well in film. Thank you.
Well, I think they have openings for the next Expendables movie, so you can get Jet Li then. Sir, sure. Go on the other side. Yes, sir.
You said two earlier, but I was wondering, what are the major martial arts styles?
I've been practicing Northern Shaolin Kung Fu since I was 8, and within that style, my teacher was a Taekwondo guy too, so a lot of the kicks and sparring we did Taekwondo. And then when I was 18, I practiced Magendo, which is Japanese kickboxing, and because it was closer to boxing, because I really like boxing. I grew up with all the Rocky movies. And of course I did the run this morning and got my picture. And my son was there to film it so I could run upstairs and I had to do it. So I grew up with those movies too, those action heroes. And so yeah, I've always boxed. It was always even till today, I always like to hit a bag. I do it more in a movie style way for film and cardio, and then wushu. And I started to practice wushu because I wanted to get into films. And one of my senior instructors, he said, well, if you want to work with Jackie Chan, you need to know wushu. And that's why I got into wushu, because I wanted to work with Jackie Chan at 14 and do stunts. And, at that age, all of the martial art guys in a Jackie Chan movie did all of their own stunts. So I wanted to be that guy. Thanks, man.
Back in the room, brown shirt.
What do you do besides martial arts to maintain your physical fitness, and do you follow any specific diet?
I used to when I was a lot younger. I used to be like every hour and a half, take a protein shake, take a carb shake, do this, and then traveling like to shows like this from London, one suitcase was full of like crates and crates of supplements. It just became a pain after a while, so I just wanted to eat. And as I've got older, I realised that just wanting to eat is a bit of a bad thing, because you get fat, So as I'm, getting older, and I always say it doesn't mean, just because you have a six-pack doesn't mean you're good, So that's my excuse, but it's, you just have to watch what you eat as you get older, and I find even like soda and stuff like that, And if I'm on a specific roll up for Snake Eyes, I really do, because you're training so much anyway, so you need to eat. You can't just starve yourself. You've really got to be disciplined. And so the supplements in between meals really help with the energy levels, like being in costume. And I just find like a really thing I like doing is like a steamboat. There's a Chinese way that you have a pot, hot water, and you put your food in, and it cooks it like in a couple of seconds, and it's a really healthy way of doing it, and you don't get too full. And I find that I can train straight away afterwards. But it just varies, you know. I just like to eat. I'll eat takeout. You know, I love Mexican food, Chinese food, Thai food, Indian food. The thing is, I like eating so much of it.
Philly cheesesteaks.
Yeah.
Burgers.
Burgers.
Burgers. Yummy. I'm hungry. Yes, ma'am. Right here.
How many bones have you broken and what's your worst bone?
You know, as far as I know, I haven't broken any yet. I've chipped a bone in my ankle. It's still floating around somewhere. And I did that because I was trying out a gymnastic move. Most of my little sprains and aches are from gymnastics and not from martial arts. Trying out a back somersault into a flip and stuff, and then impacting. And I found out by accident I chipped my bone. And it does aggravate me now and again, like for maybe a few months I'm fine, and then it'll stiffen up. So I'm sure I'm going to be, having a great life when I'm 50.
This gentleman right here, young man behind you, stand up. Stand up for me. There you go.
That's cool. For The Phantom Menace, we filmed it in England. And it was at Leavesden Studios, where they filmed all the Harry Potter movies. And it's a massive, massive warehouse. They used to build the engines for the jet engines for Rolls-Royce. And so we had one big set. The palace set was built out on the runway. And then some of the, where I had all the fight scenes and stuff, there was like 5 different hangars. So it was 5 massive, like bigger rooms than this. Maybe like 5 times bigger than this. And that would be one set, maybe one walkway where I'd do the fight scene on the beams. And so that was in Leavesden. And then the other 2 movies, they filmed it in Sydney, Australia.
When you rode off on the speeder, though, were you in front of a blue screen?
Yes, that was actually in Tunisia.
Tunisia. You were in Tunisia then?
Yes, I was there for 2 weeks, and it was, I think it was the driest, hottest place I'd been to up until then. And the eerie thing was, is that of course I was scared of scorpions and spiders and stuff because I've never been anywhere like that before. And we're in the middle of the desert, and I thought I'd go over the hill a little bit, the sand dune, away from base camp, away from set. And within like 2 seconds, the silence was unbelievable. Like I didn't hear a bird, I didn't hear a plane. You take for granted you hear noises around you all the time. There was the one place I'd been to on Earth where there was no other sound. I had to speak. I thought I was losing my hearing because I could feel the pressure. I know, but that's what I did. Because no one's around, because I just want to get my voice. Because you feel like the silence on your ears. And I've never experienced that ever in my life. It was an experience.
Awesome. Alrighty, let's get someone new. The mom. There you go. Pick you.
I'm dying to know, first of all, we loved you as Snake Eyes in G.I. Joe.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, how did you get the role as Doc Maul? And after all this time, it's become so popular, and my daughter and her friends and everyone else love the character. You'll always be Doc Maul to so many people. How did you get that role, and what do you feel about how popular it's become?
Oh, tell her about the cell phone thing.
Oh, thank you. I got a call. I did a movie called Mortal Kombat Annihilation before Star Wars, and that company and Lucas's company were in the same studios. And so people were talking about Star Wars, but I remember thinking, never in a million years am I ever going to be part of Star Wars. So there was other stunt guys and other people going, yeah, I'm going to try and be part of Star Wars, I'm going to work on a James Bond movie. There's all of these other movies being filmed at the same time. So we'd been to Thailand, we finished filming Mortal Kombat. I knew I was going back home unemployed. Had the greatest time in my life, been on a movie set for 6 months, and I was going to go back to teaching. And because I wasn't a stunt man, I hadn't gone through all the qualifications yet, and I wasn't an actor. And so my brother and I were at home, and we were like, well, we can do stunts, let's do stunts together. And And then I got a call from Nick Gillard, the stunt coordinator. And because I'd worked on Mortal Kombat and I was this crazy 21-year-old kid, bounced off my head, run up walls, spinning, you tell me to do it, I'll do it. And sort of fearless but stupid at the same time, because I wanted to be part of the film. And he asked me to come in and said, look, I heard about you, and I turn up my great Britain tracksuit, and I've got Union Jack on, and I've got all my swords, and I'm ready to demonstrate. I have my portfolio and stuff, and it's me doing splits across a chair, and do my Van Damme and stuff. And this was before demo rules. And so I was there talking to her, and it's really just sitting down talking with Nick for a few hours, and he showed me pictures of Maul, and he showed me the storyboards, he told me all these secrets. I was like, wow. And I wish he hadn't told me at the time, thinking about it now, because you're telling me something that I know I'm not going to be part of. You think that never in a million years I'm going to be in Star Wars. And so he said that Luke George is looking for a guy, an actor who can do stunts and a stuntman who can do it. And he said that they asked him to be the part first, but he's coordinating it. So he takes me upstairs, and I meet Rick McCallum, the executive producer, and George, and the other producers, and the cast and director. I said, wait a minute. I knew that this is somewhere it's going. Like, you don't do this. So he goes, why don't you just go and audition? So I met Robin Gouland, I auditioned, it was terrible. I like to say lines, and I was so uptight about something. I was nervous. And then next week when I did work on Test Flight to show George, you want to come in for the week, and at the end of the week we'll put you as Maul, and that could be like your audition tape. And so I got to work with Nick Gillard and Andres Patrice for that whole week, and on Friday, after 4 days of rehearsing, they put a ball cap on me and made me his Maul, and then George saw it, and then he says, yeah. And I remember Nick saying, look, if George doesn't if you're not right for the role, we'll get you in stunts and we'll maybe get you doubling. And I remember thinking, yeah, I've sort of been teased now, like, I want to be Darth Maul now. But I always assumed I was going to be the stunt double. And so when I did get the role, I didn't want to be a Jedi. Because growing up as a kid, I didn't want to be the bad guy. I accepted I was going to be a bad guy in Jackie Chan movies. But I wanted to be the good guy. I wanted to be a Jedi. Because I thought everyone was going to hate me. Like being a bad guy. And it's turned out that it's been a really positive character for a lot of people. So I want to say thanks to all the fans, and thanks to George, and I was a lucky kid, so.
Absolutely. Thanks to you, though, you've actually made Darth Maul a very, very iconic character in the Star Wars universe. You cannot say Darth without someone saying Maul. Not even Vader. I mean, Vader is Vader. But Darth Maul. One final question, and I'm going to give it to this lady right here because she has a youngling there. Hi. You got a question?
Hey, buddy.
Yeah.
That's what you just said about wanting to play that and enjoy that, and growing up working as a bad guy.
Well, ma'am, you remember the last... Yeah, you remember the last time a Jedi rooted for the bad guy, what happened to him, right?
What? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I like that you have a lightsaber and a katana. Yeah.
That's yours?
You kids are so lucky these days. I remember seeing Star Wars for the first time, and actually Star Wars, when Empire Strikes Back was released, they showed the first movie and then the second one, and it was the first movie I had seen ever on a big screen in colour. Because up until then, my uncles and cousins were taken to movies on a Saturday, but it would always be black and white. And I remember seeing Luke Skywalker with Yoda on his back, training, and as a boy, and that's why I got to martial arts too. It was like, one day I'm going to be able to do that with a kid on my back, and if I have kids one day, like as a 7-year-old, I'm thinking, if I'm a dad one day, I want to be able to do a somersault and a handstand with someone on my back. I thought it was so cool that Luke Skywalker could do a handstand with Yoda on his back. And then after the movie, I said, Dad, because my dad's an electrician, I said, Dad, can you make me a lightsaber? It was like, when you think that, anything's possible. And now you have these fantastic lightsabers. You're so lucky. All I have is a light bulb and a switch.
Ladies and gentlemen, from GI Retaliation, Star Wars, The Phantom Menace. No one asked the heroes question. No one asked the X-Men question. Ray will be at his table all weekend long. So with a nice big round of applause and thank you for coming.
Well, I hope you could hear that all right and you enjoyed it. I am sorry. The guy next to me just kept whispering at me and kept asking me questions, and it kind of frustrates the hell out of me that he's on the audio. I'm sure you guys probably didn't really notice, and if you did, I apologize. But I hope you got something from what Ray was saying. It was a fantastic Q&A, and he talked about some stuff. Like the guy who said at the end, no one asked him about the X-Men, and there could have been some better questions and things. But I think considering the short time that he had and the questions he was asked, it was a good Q&A. So, without barely a moment to catch a breather, it was a brisk jog up 2 or maybe even 3 escalators to make it to the ballroom, which at 5 p.m. was hosting a Q&A with none other than Michael Rooker. I had been a fan of his way before The Walking Dead and was pleased to see that I was not the only one when he fielded questions not just about Merle, but also about Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, Mallrats, and even Tombstone, a personal favourite of mine. No Sea of Love or Slither questions, sadly, but beggars can't be choosers, am I right? Rooks took to the stage like a fucking rock star, and even if his answers weren't the most spectacularly in-depth or insightful, he was watchable, funny, funky, and cool as fuck for the whole 45 minutes. As you can see, if you go to our YouTube page, www.youtube.com/omnoproductions, where I have posted a video, I think, of about 30 minutes out of the 45. Also, if you go back to a previous Diner episode, you can hear the whole 45 minutes. So everything is available somewhere. Have a look. A quick word at this point about the excellent moderator Mark Lee. You heard him just there on the Ray Park Q&A, and he's also the moderator on both the Shatner and the Michael Rooker Q&As that I posted on our site. While I did hear his same stories a few times, as there were many occasions at this con that he had to vamp until the star got there, he always told it with a personable enthusiasm, excitement, and good humour. His interaction with the stars was always humorous, to the point, and he professionally tried to spur the folk less inclined to give good or detailed answers on to actually give upbeat and in-depth responses. He also had no problem jokingly or seriously removing any idiotic con-goer who had long drawn-out silly questions. He did his job well, with a smile and with passion. It was very much appreciated, good sir, so I don't know if you're listening, but thank you ever so much, Mark. After the excitement of Rooker and reeling a little from the lack of sleep I had from the night before, I headed back to the hotel for a little while before venturing out again to see Andrew McCarthy introduce Weekend at Bernie's at 7 p.m. The surprise here was how long, in-depth, open, funny, and appealing the Q&A was with former Brat Packer McCarthy prior to the film. I was expecting a cursory introduction, but the man really answered some questions and gave the crowd a show. I was very tired at this point, and after recording a few minutes of the Q&A and watching the first 15 minutes of Bernie, I sadly had to leave and go back to the hotel. I didn't get to see what he said after the film, but the plan was to have him come back out for more after the screening. So I don't know if anyone heard it. Please do write in and let us know, or if anyone has video or audio, let us know. Aftermoviediner@gmail.com. I was sad to have missed it, but I could no longer keep my eyes open. I guess I'm not as young as I once was, and the 3 hours sleep I had barely got the Thursday night before wasn't helping me to power through this long day successfully. You can find what little I did film of the Q&A of Andrew McCarthy over on our YouTube page or on Facebook. The YouTube again is www.youtube.com/omnoproductions. Saturday. Always the busiest day of any con going over a weekend, and always the day on which they schedule the most popular stuff. While this makes a certain sense, and certainly a financial sense, it does lead to longer lines, overcrowding, and worst of all, disappointments, as invariably you can't make every Q&A, every panel, every photo shoot, and every booth you would like to. It's simply not possible. Although I had filled up my Friday fairly successfully, and while I appreciate there needs to be time for the panels concerning comics and cosplay on maybe the less popular days, I would like to see the big hitters, the stars and panels everyone is there for, spread out better over the 3 days. For example, on Saturday there was William Shatner, The Walking Dead, Firefly, Henry Winkler, Charmed Buffy, and the weirdly popular Power Ranger guy Jason David Frank Q&As. And on Sunday, John Barrowman and Mano Bennett. You'd be completely forgiven if you just said, who at that point. I understand not wanting too much Friday during the day, as people might need to be at work, but Sunday? That's another weekend day in my world. I was joined on Saturday by my wife and was a little trepidatious at first as to how she was going to take it all. Not in a condescending way, but because while we fell in love over a mutual interest in George A. Romero zombie films, and while I credit my wife for getting me into 80s and 90s action films again, and while she grew up loving Star Wars and the original Hulk series, I wasn't sure if all this rabid geekdom on display wouldn't be a little overkill for her. Thankfully, I'm happy to report she loved it and threw herself into every aspect of the event with enthusiasm. First up on Saturday was a photo op with William Shatner. Now, I could rant here about the cost of the thing, the impersonal nature of it once you've paid that money, the orders and rules barked at you by the photo op staff, clearly loving being able to restrict others from having any fun, about the abuse of VIP passes, and about the slightly shoddy organisation, especially on the Saturday, which are all complaints I've either read, others have, or hold myself to some extent. But ultimately, I'm not going to, as it leads us to Lesson 2. Accept the reality and the cost. This is imperative if you're going to relax and have any fun. You must accept you're not going to be able to see everything and do everything, and you must accept that these events, like it or not, do not come cheap. Are there ways that your experience could have been improved? Yeah, of course, and we'll get to one way in particular later that has to do with the Walking Dead photographs. But really, when you consider everything that has to happen at these events, the amount of people through the door, the security, the guests, the staff, etc., they did a bloody good job all told, and who am I to really complain? I got to get a photograph with William Shatner, something my teenage brain would never have believed possible 18 years ago. So, overall, apart from one single frustration that I will, again, get to later, I think most things went off without a hitch. So I got my picture with Shatner, Captain Kirk himself, T.J. Hooker, Denny Motherflubbing Crane. I honestly, staring at the picture now, can't believe it happened. Now, in the picture, I have a t-shirt that's available at the Aftermovie Diner store, which is www.cafepress.com/Aftermovie Diner, which says on it, I hope one day we'll all have a friend like Karate Pete, and then there's a little pipe. Now, to explain that t-shirt, it references a song I did on the Shatner episode of my podcast, where we covered Impulse and the Devil's Rain. You can look up the Shatner episode on either the website, amdpodcast.blogspot.com, or over at iTunes. I was introduced to Impulse, the movie, by my friend and podcast listener, Brad Gullickson, who is such a fan of the gentleman that every year he hosts a film festival in his apartment called Shat Attack. Brad, by the way, runs the great blog In the Mouth of Dorkness, so please do look that up, inthemouthodorkness.blogspot.com. Brad writes about all different stuff every week, what he's watching, what he's been reading comic book-wise, and everything like that. So if you're into comic books, you're into movies, check out Brad's blog. It's fantastic. In Impulse, Harold Sakata, who most will know as the James Bond villain Oddjob, plays an old acquaintance of Shatner's character who pulls up in a large RV at some point at a car wash, and on the outside of his RV is a banner that reads in big letters, Karate Pete. Brad was at Philly Comic-Con last year and had contacted me on Twitter when he heard that I would be going too, and we met up. I then had him on the show for the convention talking about the Captain's Panel, among other things. It was on that episode that we hatched the plan to do the Double Bill Shatner episode. So, my one goal this year, when I heard Shatner would again be attending, was to get a photograph with the man wearing the t-shirt inspired by a film that was introduced to me by a one-time listener of a silly podcast that I host, and now, after meeting last year at the con, I consider a friend. It, to me, beautifully represents the world we, self-proclaimed proud nerds and geeks, all now live in. The wonderful rise of fandom and friendship, and not to mention the fantastic accessibility of these icons who we've all held so dear for so long. That's worth a wad of my cash any day of the week. Perfect con moment. After the Shatner photo, the wife got a picture with her favourite Hulk, Lou Ferrigno, and we discovered that this year, unlike last year, some of the guests were, for a different fee, doing photos at their booth, often with a signature and a picture thrown in. This was also a great improvement over last year because while we did cough up quite a few shekels to stand in line for ages and get a professional photo with quite a few of the famous guests, with others it was quicker, easier and nicer to just snap one yourself at the booths. More personal, more fun and cheaper. Good all round. That's what I like, the ability to choose. Last year, when it was photo op or nothing, it felt a little Gestapo-esque the way the yellow-shirted volunteers were forced to shoo away people taking long-lens, grainy, blurred photos of the back of some famous person's head from yards away at the end of a very long line of fans. Silly, really. You're not paying just to take a photo, you're paying for the experience of an unobstructed capturing of a personal moment with one of your favourite actors. Less emphasis should be placed on removing folks just getting random long-distance snaps. It leaves a sour taste in everyone's mouth. Then we wandered around the floor again, biding time until Shatner's Q&A at 12:30. My wife got an autograph and a picture with Andrew McCarthy at his booth. We got pictures of lots of lovely cosplayers, and after all that, it was off to the William Shatner Q&A. Shatner's Q&A was great. He was funny, in-depth, manic, smart, charming, eloquent, and everything you wanted from Shatner. He really is a legend and can really hold a room. Yeah, there was some umming and erring as he tries to make his 82-year-old brain remember his 5-decade-strong career, but he always gets there and it's always engaging, admirable and humorous when he does. Plus, he was one of the few that spoke about interesting and exciting upcoming projects. I could have sat and listened to him for hours. I saw his one-man show on Broadway, and while obviously this wasn't as prepared, it was a marvellous extension of that showman, that professional, and the dedicated workaholic that is William Shatner today. You can hear or download his whole Q&A at the After Movie Diner podcast, either on iTunes or TalkShoe, or on our website, amdpodcast.blogspot.com, or aftermoviediner.com. Our plan, after some more floor time and then some lunch, was to take in the Buffy Fest panel that was happening at 2:30 p.m. We hit the convention floor happy and giddy after Shatner's talk, and we hadn't been there 2 minutes when, who should we spy? None other than Tom Savini himself, the legendary makeup and FX guru behind Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and Friday the 13th, among others. It reminded me that I had read somewhere that he was only appearing Saturday afternoon, as I guess some sort of publicity stunt, as he was set up at the booth for Romper Zombie Toys. I feel like not a lot of people even realized he was there. He didn't have much of a line, it wasn't an official booth, but for $20 you could get a signed photo and a picture with the man. Well, I jumped at the chance. Not only are the wife and I huge fans of his work, and she also loves him as Sex Machine in From Dusk Till Dawn. I had heard he can get prickly with fans sometimes, and I was hoping he wasn't going to let us down today. I'm happy to report he didn't at all. No, he wasn't hugely talkative, but he was appreciative of my stammering praise and compliments of his work. He shook my hand, autographed a picture of himself as Sex Machine, and he posed for not one but 2 pictures. I made an utter fool of myself by being so blown away by his presence that I initially completely forgot to get the camera out of my bag. I just didn't know where I was or what I was doing. I just couldn't believe it was happening. Luckily, though, after all my dithering, we ended up with a great snap and an awesome autograph. Definitely an unexpected and awesome con highlight. I still can't believe it. It's funny who you get starstruck by, but Tom Savini was one of those guys for me. I may have been an absolute stumbling imbecile around him, but when I look at that picture, I just think, that's so cool. My wife and I have met a man who helped create a film, Day of the Dead, that both of us fell in love to. After this, it was off for lunch. While tucking into a breakfast roll, we decided to forgo the Buffy Fest panel. I'd seen the Buffy and James Masters panels last year, and my wife wanted to relax for a bit, understandable as it had been a hell of a morning. After lunch, we headed along the many long floors of the convention center and back up a myriad of dizzying escalators to get to the Walking Dead panel. When we got to the top, outside the ballroom, we were greeted with massive lines snaking all around the whole top floor. This was caused by the Buffy panel letting out and lines forming for not just the Walking Dead panel, but the Firefly panel that was coming on right after them. To be fair to the volunteers, they very quickly divided out the 2 different lines and organized it as best they could, so we could shuffle and file into the big old ballroom. It turned out that we really didn't need to bother, actually, as when we finally got into the ballroom, not only were we right at the back, but also the 3 actors from The Walking Dead weren't even there. In fact, they took so long to arrive that a child with mad face paint, I think Rorschach from Watchmen, and an Iron Man top just wandered up on stage by himself, and as precocious, as confident a kid as I have ever seen, he took the mic and started talking into it. It wasn't long before he was joined by another kid, too, and while this passed the time and made the crowd ooh and ah and laugh, I was painfully aware that we had a photo op for the Walking Dead guys to get to very quickly after the Q&A, and it was slowly looking like not all of the actors were going to show up. When one of the actors finally did take the stage, it was none other than the Rooker again, as for whatever reason, Norman Reedus is insanely Beatlemania popular. After seeing Michael Rooker do his thing Friday, realizing we weren't going to get all 3 of them on stage together, which is really what I was looking for, and my wife wanting to get in line earlyish for the photo op, it was decided that we'd leave the Q&A and go stand online, which we did after about 15 minutes. So because of the overscheduling of Saturday, the popularity of The Walking Dead and Firefly, we sadly got to see neither Q&A in its entirety. Then because they scheduled photo ops with all 3 Walking Dead cast, Rooker, Reedus and Bernthal, and then just the Dixon brothers, Rooker and Reedus, meaning there were several baffling lines. Because any VIP with any pass for any of the actors or The Walking Dead could just show up whenever they like, and because they didn't limit the number of VIP passes sold or the number of photo ops sold, we ended up standing for almost 3 very tiring, draining hours. That's not where the pain ended, unfortunately. The photo ops, after they were taken, took a speedy 45 minutes to come out, which was great. The trouble was they oversold and then overbooked the photo ops on The Walking Dead. Now, considering I suspect a lot of these, like ours, were bought online pre-sale before the con even started, and considering they know that Saturday is the busiest day of the con, you'd think they'd have a plan for this. Now, for whatever reason, the main con hall had to close at 7 p.m. At this point, everyone who had photo ops with anyone 5 p.m. and onwards filed out into the huge registration area, which is a big, echoey concrete barn. This made communication and organization by unprepared staff with no megaphones an absolute nightmare. It also meant that all the photos had to come out in dribs and drabs from the opposite end of the vast convention hall to a big concrete room with 1 million people in it and no real tables. Lines snaked all over the place. People were cutting in, crowding the registration booths where the photos may or may not end up being displayed, breaking the poles placed there to organize lines, and staff struggled to make any sense of it. Feeling tired and irritable, I was not at all happy, and through the mistake of one of the organizing staff, I found myself at the end of a mammoth line when I had actually been up front in a shorter line earlier and had, in fact, been waiting since before the hall even closed. Luckily, a volunteer eventually told us that all the people attending Sunday could pick their pictures up tomorrow morning, something that probably should have been pointed out before we all spent an hour and a half getting angry, achy, and tired. Not only that, but Norman Reedus and Summer Glau from Firefly had to be moved out into the registration area and continued signing autographs till gone 9 p.m. This was because the autograph pre-sales and sales on the day meant they too were overbooked. All I would say to the organisers next year, or of future cons this year featuring insanely popular personalities, monitor and plan for overbooking. Firstly, make it clear that there is a limited number available online, or make autograph photo ops for certain people only available for online payment, or limit the number of VIP passes. Also, definitely don't schedule everything for a Saturday only. As for the photo op fiasco on the Saturday, the convention centre had 1 million rooms. All you needed to do was, before the hall closed, anticipating the madness, have the photo staff divide up the photos, take the separate photo sessions to separate rooms, lay them out there, and then, at 7 p.m., direct people, coolly and calmly, to the right room number. Okay, moaning and criticising over. It was all utter agony at the end of Saturday, full of highs and lows, but it resulted in a very silly picture of me, Norman Reedus, in a fucking baseball hat and shades, which again was a bit of a poor show actually, and the rock star legend that is Michael Rooker. So, actually, all's well that ends well. Sunday. On Sunday we had only one plan, and that was to do one last bounce around the booths, take a few pictures, talk to a few folks, and interview Vlad Yudin, the creator of HEADSMASH. First up, we headed over to Henry Winkler's booth and stood online watching him entertain the children with his biting the coin in half trick. Just fantastic. That's also available on our YouTube page, by the way. If you don't know by now, www.youtube.com/OMNO Productions. That's O-M for mother, N for Nicholas, O Productions. Also, of course, just as we were going to be the next online, he was called away to do his photo op, but, ever the showman, and making an instant fan of my wife, he grabbed her cheeks playfully and said, "Now don't you go away, I'll be right back, and I want to see you." He signed a very cool picture, took a picture with us as well, and then we trundled off to join Linda Blair's line. Now, sadly, I can't say our reception at Linda Blair's line was as warm, inviting, or as fun. She was seemingly only there to plug and get money for her dog charity, and despite advertising that she would take a picture with you and sign something, she didn't seem happy to do much of either. She seemed very happy to talk about dogs and her dog charity, but seeing as I couldn't really care less about dogs or dog charities, and weirdly wanted to actually meet her because she was in The Exorcist in Savage Streets, it wasn't that a successful meeting, sadly. Luckily, a photo came out okay, so I can't complain too much. We then had a photo op with James Masters, which had been moved earlier, and so he was late. I got the feeling as he ran in sweating and apologizing that someone hadn't told him the time had been changed. Still, the picture came out well, and it was very cool. Then lastly, on Sunday, before we left for New York, we had the pleasure to interview Vlad Yudin, creator of HEADSMASH. And here, for your listening pleasure, is that interview. So I'm here with Vlad Yudin. He is the creator of HEADSMASH. And for our listeners, what exactly is HEADSMASH? Where did that come from?
HEADSMASH, to break it down very easily, but it's basically a new superhero for the new generation.
Okay.
It takes place in the fictional city of Iris, which is a pre-apocalyptic city, very grim. It's basically controlled by different syndicates and gang organizations that are fighting for control.
Okay.
The biggest one being the Horde. It's the red symbol right there, if you guys see it on camera.
Very cool.
It's the red skull. It's the emblem. And Smash is a young orphan growing up in a city's orphanage. And then one day he gets adopted by Maurice, who basically the ruler of the Horde. And Maurice becomes his father figure.
Okay.
And then one day, when Smash grows up, he betrays him and takes away his pregnant wife. So Smash realizes that that whole lifespan that he had with Maurice was a lie, and he was betrayed and used for something. So he starts a quest and uprising against the Horde on his own. He takes a special serum, which gives him those glowing eyes again, and it gives him that superpower, and he starts his quest for revenge and a quest to save his family and understand why he was betrayed. So that's kind of like the basic premise of it.
That's very cool, very cool. And so what were the influences there that helped you on the way to developing the story?
Well, the basic idea is the fight for your right to freedom, for your family. You know, that's the kind of like the core value of it.
Sure.
Our slogan is to obey is to die, and that's what Smash really takes on the whole huge, very dangerous organization with a lot of kind of deep roots and a lot of soldiers and a lot of influence in the city, and he takes on just for his family. So that's the basic principle.
Okay, cool, very cool, very cool. So you're starting off with the graphic novel, and then my understanding is that it's been optioned already for a film?
Next year it'll be made into a film. We're working with the producers of Twilight.
Yeah.
It's in development right now, and we're going to be making some announcements at San Diego Comic-Con.
Okay, excellent. And was that always the intention to do the graphic novel as a stepping stone, or have you always been a fan of comics and graphic novels?
Always been a fan of graphic novels. I think in order to set up a character like this, and with this type of sort of premise, it's almost inevitable to make it into a graphic novel, to show the visuals. And I feel like, just historically, you know what I mean? Every major superhero came out of graphic novels and comic books.
Right.
So when I was developing the story, it was always an idea to make it into a graphic novel first and then see what could happen after that. It just so happened that the story is a good fit for a film. So next year we'll make it into a film.
That's great. And do you think, like Kick-Ass, you'll go on and do like a second graphic novel and a third, and will you continue to develop the character on the page?
It'll be a trilogy.
At least a trilogy on the page.
But every book will be like a standalone piece, you know what I mean?
Right, okay.
But trilogy will
Well, featuring the same character, but just 3 standalone stories that people can pick up as they see fit. And so what were some of your, first of all, favorite graphic novels growing up, and then like some of the films that you hope will influence the look and the design and so on of the finished novel?
I love The Punisher.
Yeah.
And luckily for me, I got a chance to work with Tim Bradstreet.
Oh, very cool.
The guy who actually worked on The Punisher. He's an amazing artist. He worked on The Punisher and Hellraiser and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
So I think Punisher is one of those books that are iconic, and I'm definitely very happy to be working with him. With Tim, I mean.
Yeah.
And I like stuff like Sin City, of course, and stuff like in that genre.
Yeah.
As far as movies, I'm a big movie guy. I love a lot of different things.
Yeah.
From dramas to comedies to action, sci-fi. I love Star Wars. I love stuff like that.
Right. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Excellent. Well, look. Thank you very much. Why don't you let people know where they can find it? If they're not at the Comic Cons, where can they pick it up? Can they pick it up online? Can they?
July 31st will be available at all the stores across the nation. So please pick it up in every store.
Yeah.
You can pre-order on Amazon right now, or you can go to HEADSMASH.net. and learn all information about it. But it's going to be everywhere, so please check it out.
All right, well, look, thanks ever so much, Vlad. That was great. Thank you very much. Well, the book sounds fantastic and would be well worth picking up, which I believe you can do on pre-order at the moment over at Amazon. So head over there and check it out. You can also follow HeadSmash on Facebook at www.facebook.com/HeadSmash. And I believe they're appearing at other Comic-Cons around the country. So after 2.5 days at the convention, my overall feeling was extremely positive. We had got some great memories, met some great people, and attended some fantastic Q&As. And that's it. Thank you all for listening to this, my Comic-Con diary, and our roundup with our interviews and Q&A and so on and so forth. And thanks everyone who commented or retweeted or liked a photo on our Facebook page or indeed sent in their wonderful feedback into the show. It was just great, fantastic, and I hope this has satisfied everyone. I've shared all the video we took, all the audio we got, and every photo at this point. So that's it. No more left now. Next week, we're going to be bringing you a very special comic book themed podcast all about a certain film that may or may not be coming out, and the films that were made in the early 80s. That's just a hint about a guy in a red cape. Oh, for God's sake, next week we're doing a Superman episode, so please tune into that. Probably be up next Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever date that is. That'll be the 18th or 19th. So please do look out for that, all you comic book and superhero and Superman fans, as I will be bringing on my comic book collaborator and regular king of all things comic movies, David DeMoss. So please look out for that. Thank you for listening, and goodbye. Okay, this song is When All Hell Breaks Loose by Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures and can be found for free download over at miscellaneousplumbingfixtures.bandcamp.com, along with 3 full musical albums by me available for purchase at very, very, very cheap prices. So please do head over to miscellaneousplumbingfixtures.bandcamp.com and take a listen, have a look, and download an album or 2. Enjoy! I'll be out at the movies. I don't need no rope to make a noose. I don't need no rope to make a noose. The manager ain't got the numbers. He's got the spreadsheet blues. The higher ups are circling, and that is never good news. I don't want to be around when all hell breaks loose. So no, I want to be out at the movies. I don't need no spreadsheet to know I paid my dues. You want to hear me pay my dues? Pay 1, 2, and listen. Sanctuary in this cathedral of the light. The images burn brighter in the middle of the night. 100 million stories, so much in here to see. When all hell breaks loose, you know where to find me. My landlord's got some rundown joints, he needs his hammer and his screws. The costs are rising higher with every tool they use. I don't want to be around when all hell breaks loose. So no, I'll be out at the movies. I don't need no hammer man to know when they'll blow a fuse. Well, I know when they blow a fuse. I don't need no rope to make no goddamn news. I don't need no spreadsheet to know when I paid my dues. 'Cause I know that I paid
there are second unit podcast men. The podcast you've just been listening to is part of the Second Unit Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at 2upn.blogspot.com or on Facebook under the Second Unit Podcast Network. Our fantastic list of shows include Drunk on VHS, We Came from the Basement, No Budget Nightmares, The After Movie Diner, Dr.Action and the Kick-Ass Kid, and Bloodbaths and Boomsticks. Take one podcast into the shower. Don't be a blithering idiot, Alan. We can give you the multiple podcast cleansing system all in one place that your hair deserves. Our programming is available across all platforms from iTunes to Podomatic, TalkShoe to Stitcher, so you have absolutely no excuse. Listen today, and a free naked person of your choice will be shipped from Thailand to your door in a matter of weeks. The Second Unit Podcast Network, bringing you the action and leaving the boring stuff to the other guys. Bloody hell. Who does a girl have to blow around here to get a decent beverage?